Good evening and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System's Global Security Briefing. Today is Friday, May 23rd, 2025. I am Thomas Lonely Wolf, reporting from our broadcast center with the latest updates on nuclear tensions, geopolitical instability, and the security of nations in an increasingly uncertain world. This is your analysis of developing threats that could impact global stability and strategic balance. We begin with the ongoing crisis surrounding Iran's nuclear ambitions. The latest round of talks between Iran and the United States concluded this week in Rome, ending with no clear resolution. According to U.S. diplomats, Tehran remains firm in its stance to continue uranium enrichment, reportedly reaching enrichment levels beyond 60%, which experts warn is dangerously close to weapons grade. In response, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, forgive me if I mispronounce names, issued a stark warning that any Israeli strike on its nuclear facilities would be viewed as a declaration of war, and that Iran would consider the United States legally and militarily responsible. Tehran has also begun dispersing sensitive components across multiple hardened underground sites, complicating potential strike strategies and signaling a shift toward wartime readiness. American officials have indicated that back-channel communications are ongoing, but both sides appear unwilling to shift red lines. Iran immediately demands a lifting of all sanctions and legal guarantees against future withdrawal from any nuclear agreement. Meanwhile, the United States insists on stringent monitoring and rollback of Iran's current enrichment levels. Military analysts suggest that the situation is rapidly deteriorating into a high-risk standoff. If diplomacy fails, the consequences could reach beyond the region, potentially drawing in global powers and destabilizing energy markets. Adding to the tension, satellite intelligence and intercepted communications suggest Israel may be preparing for potential preemptive strike against Iranian nuclear infrastructure. Over the past 2 weeks, the Israeli Air Force has conducted large-scale simulation drills involving F-35s and aerial refueling tankers. These exercises reportedly mimic long-range sorties aimed at fortifying targets in mountainous terrain, conditions closely matching those of Iran's Natanz and Fordo nuclear sites. Again, forgive me if I mispronounce words. The Israeli Defense Forces have not commented publicly, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated what he called Israel's unassailable right to defend itself. In a recent statement, he declared that Israel will act alone if necessary, stating, "History does not forgive those who ignore threats until it is too late." The United States, while officially committing to diplomacy, is reportedly to be quietly preparing contingency plans, including enhanced air defense support for U.S. installations across the Middle East. Analysts warn that any strike by Israel could result in retaliatory attacks by Iran or its regional proxies, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, potentially escalating into a broader regional war. In Gaza, the humanitarian situation has reached catastrophic levels, with nearly 70% of infrastructure damaged or destroyed and strict blockades still in place. The United Nations warns that the territory is at risk of complete societal collapse. Hospitals are overwhelmed, fuel supplies already critically low are expected to run out within days, which would bring medical services, water purification systems, and food distribution to a halt. At least 29 people, most of them children, have died this month from starvation-related complications. The Palestinian Red Crescent has called the situation beyond crisis, stating that over 9,000 children are currently being treated for severe malnutrition and dehydration. Israel continues its military operations in northern Gaza, stating that militant infrastructures and Hamas leadership remain embedded in civilian areas. Prime Minister Netanyahu, facing both international criticism and internal political pressure, have dismissed calls for a ceasefire. In a speech this week, he accused Western leaders of hypocrisy, stating, "Those who condemn our actions side not with peace, but with terror." Aid groups are now warning of potential cholera outbreaks due to the collapse of sanitation systems. With no diplomatic breakthrough in sight, observers fear that the conflict may spiral into an uncontrollable humanitarian disaster. Turning to Southeast Asia, the fragile ceasefire between India and Pakistan appears to be unraveling. Despite an agreement reached earlier this month, cross-border shelling was reported just 48 hours after the truce was declared, with both sides trading blame. India claims Pakistan forces violated the agreement in the Poonch sector of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan, in turn, accuses India of launching unprovoked mortar fire. This comes amid disturbing reports that both nations have moved additional tactical units to forward positions. While neither government has confirmed it, Indian intelligence sources suggest that Pakistan has placed short-range nuclear-capable missiles on alert in at least 2 western provinces. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, stated this week that India will pursue diplomacy but will not tolerate nuclear coercion. He reiterated that dialogue must be bilateral and free of international interference. Meanwhile, Chinese military movements near the line of actual control and Ladakh have raised additional concerns, fueling speculation about broader regional realignments. While Beijing has so far stayed silent on the India-Pakistan standoff, its involvement in joint exercises with Pakistani forces last week may indicate a shift in posture. Security experts warn that subcontinent remains one of the most likely flashpoints for nuclear exchange, given the history of full-scale wars and unresolved territorial disputes between the two nations. A newly released U.S. intelligence assessment paints a sobering picture of North Korea's evolving military strategy. The report, compiled by the Defense Intelligence Agency and reviewed by multiple congressional panels, concludes that Pyongyang now possesses operational hypersonic missile capabilities and can strike targets throughout South Korea and Japan within minutes. More alarmingly, it suggests North Korea has completed miniaturization of warheads for use on short and intermediate-range missiles. The report also highlights deepening military and economic ties between North Korea and Russia. In the past 6 months, the two nations have conducted naval exercises, traded missile guidance systems, and signaled a mutual defense cooperation agreement that could include material transfers. This strategic alignment complicates efforts by the United States and allies to isolate North Korea. While sanctions remain in place, analysts point out that enforcement has weakened considerably, with increased trade flowing through Russian and Chinese channels. North Korea's state media has doubled down on war rhetoric, calling the U.S. an imperial menace and vowing a swift obliteration of any invading forces. The regime also recently unveiled a new class of nuclear submarines, though Western experts remain skeptical of their effectiveness. This increasing belligerence, backed by a stronger alliance network, makes the North Korean threat significantly more complex and unpredictable than in past years. In a demonstration of strategic readiness, the United States Air Force conducted a successful test of a Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile from Vandenberg Force Base in California. The unarmed missile traveled approximately 4,200 miles to the atoll in the Marshall Islands, striking its targets with high precision. The U.S. Strategic Command emphasized that the test was scheduled well in advance and was not in response to any specific threat. Nevertheless, defense analysts note that such launches serve dual purposes, both technical validation and geopolitical signaling. With tensions high across multiple theaters, the timing of this demonstration is being closely watched by adversaries and allies alike. Simultaneously, the Department of Defense released a revised budget framework that includes significant cuts to legacy Army systems and reallocation of funds toward nuclear modernization and cyber warfare. Among the key reforms is a revamp of the military's household goods relocation program, which has faced mounting criticism for inefficiency and contractor abuse. These budgetary changes reflect a strategic pivot by U.S. defense planners, focusing less on prolonged ground conflicts and more on strategic deterrence, force mobility, and next-generation technologies capable of countering near-peer threats such as China and Russia. Finally, we turn to growing public anxiety across Europe and North America. A new pan-European survey published this week by Euronews finds that 57% of respondents in Western Europe believe a major global war could occur within the next 5 years, the highest level of concern since the Cold War. The report identifies several contributing factors: the Ukraine conflict's prolonged stalemate, renewed Middle East violence, Taiwan Strait flashpoints, and a general sense that traditional alliances are weakening. In Germany and France, over half of respondents said they would support increased military spending, a noticeable reversal from pacifist sentiments in previous years. This growing fear is not only cultural, it is influencing policy. NATO officials have acknowledged that member states are accelerating military readiness programs, including civil defense initiatives not seen since the 1980s. The United Kingdom has begun quietly updating public guidance on nuclear preparedness, including revised evacuation and shelter protocols. Public discourse around global conflict is also intensifying online, with social media platforms reporting spikes in search terms such as World War III, nuclear shelter, and draft age. Whether these fears are overblown or prescient, they are shaping both the political climate and the strategic calculus of nations. This concludes this briefing from the DEFCON Warning System. The world continues to grow more complex, more violent, and more interconnected. We will be watching. Stay informed, stay alert, and stay prepared. For continuous updates and expert analysis, visit us at defconwarningsystem.com. I am Tom Lonelywolf, and this has been your Global Security Briefing.